So if you're looking at buying a duplex, the biggest question you'll have is this: is this actually a good deal or not? In my last video, I talked about why I like duplexes as a starting point, and now the question becomes, how do you actually know if one is a good deal? Because once you start looking at properties, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. You've got rents, expenses, financing, repairs, and before long, it starts to feel more complicated than it should be. And in my experience, it really doesn't need to. In fact, if the math starts getting too complicated, that's usually a sign to walk away. Because for this type of investment, you should be able to get a very good sense of a deal in just a few minutes. And the way I've always approached it is in two simple steps. Step number one, does the price make sense based on comparables? And before I run any numbers, I want to know, what are similar properties actually selling for? Because duplexes don't behave like large commercial properties. They're not priced primarily based on cash flow. They tend to be priced more like single-family homes based on what comparable properties are selling for in the area. So the first thing I'll do is look at recent sales. What have similar duplexes sold for? What's the range? You can often get this information yourself through your province's property assessment website. You can see assessed values and in many cases what the properties actually sold for. Or if you're working with an agent, they can give you that information very quickly. So step number one is simple. Is this property priced reasonably relative to the market? Step number two, does it make sense as an investment? Now, even though duplexes are priced like single-family homes, they are still income-producing properties. So I still want to make sure, do the numbers actually make sense? And this is where I use something very simple, and that's the 50% rule. Now, this isn't a precise calculation. It's not meant to replace detailed analysis, but it's a very effective way to quickly test whether a deal makes sense. So here's how it works. Over the long term, about 50% of your rental income will go towards expenses before you pay the bank. That includes property taxes, insurance, maintenance, vacancies, and eventually bigger items like the roof or a driveway. And I keep it at 50% for simplicity. I don't try to fine-tune it for every situation, but if I want to be more conservative, I might run it at 55% or even 60% just to stress test the deal and see how it holds up. So let's walk through a quick example. Let's say the duplex brings in $3,000 a month in rent. Using the 50% rule, you assume about half of that rent that you're going to collect, $1,500, goes towards expenses. So that leaves you with $1,500 a month, or multiply that by 12. Over a year, that's $18,000. Now the question becomes, what is that $18,000 worth to me? In other words, how much would I pay for a property for it to give me $18,000 a year? For me, I usually start by looking for about a 5% return. So I take that $18,000, divide it by 5%, and that gives me a value of about $360,000. Now that's just the starting point, because not all properties are the same. If it's a very strong property, great location, well-maintained, likely to attract good tenants, I might accept a slightly lower yield, maybe 4% or 4.5%, because better properties tend to appreciate more over time, attract better tenants, and gives you more opportunities to increase rent over time. So now if I do that same calculation of $18,000 divided by 4.5%, I get a valuation of $400,000. So this gives me an indication that I should pay somewhere between $360,000 and $400,000 for this property. Now keep in mind that this presumes that you don't have to put any money into the property for major repairs or renovations when you buy it. And if you do have to put additional money into this property after purchasing it, well, that needs to be factored into the price and adjusted downward accordingly. So now you have two quick reference points. Start with the market comparables, then validate with the numbers, and if both make sense, then you move forward.